Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing this hates a dumpee the most. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. Subscribe to my weekly support emails. The link is in the description. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing this hates a dumpee the most. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will likely worry that your expert dumper hates you. But what if I were to tell you that this likely isn't true, and in fact, and unfortunately, something hates you more? In today's podcast, I'm discussing 3 points to consider about what hates a dumpee the most. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is let's talk about the dumper. So before we get into what actually hates a dumpee the most, we need to speak about the dumper, because this is the person that you as a dumpee probably worry hates you the most. And listen, I don't know your specifics, and unfortunately, there might be instances of where a dumper does tell you at the time of a breakup that they hate you. Now, first of all, this isn't too common, and secondly, it's even less believable. We have to recognise that a breakup is very, very emotional, and people will say things which, unfortunately, are very powerful within their words and can be very hurtful. But it doesn't mean they are actually true. It doesn't mean they are actually authentic. They might feel true in that very moment, but the reality is they probably aren't the words of someone who is thinking fully straightforward. Now you might say to yourself, well, my dumper gave me this reason, that reason, and the other reason as for why they hate me. Now listen, if you've done something, like for instance you cheated on your partner and now they've dumped you, you must expect them to be saying words to you such as that they hate you, okay? It's likely to happen in the heat of the moment. Does it really mean what they are saying in the long term? Well, occasionally it will, but mostly it wouldn't. And that is extreme circumstances. Generally speaking, most dumpers are not even going to say those words because they definitely don't mean it, and they even know they don't mean it during the emotional time of a breakup. They're not going to be saying these things because there is no thread of truth to it. So as a dumpee, even though you feel that your world has been turned upside down and you're wondering why the person who said they loved you has now ended a relationship, they are not that far to the other side of where they are now trying to say and give you the opinions that they actually hate you. Okay, so you might feel they do by the way they have behaved, by action in the breakup, but this is because you are feeling that rejection. You are feeling the shock. You're experiencing feelings very similar to a combination of grief and drug withdrawal. Everything is amplified. Everything is magnified. So we have to recognize that words which are said might not really be the truthful feeling. And even if you are just thinking, well, they must hate me, by the way they've just discarded me, again, it isn't necessarily the case. Most of the time it isn't. Your ex-dumper didn't want to end the relationship most of the time. They just feel they had to. They didn't have a choice. Maybe they feel that you hate them. Maybe they feel they had to get out of this relationship because it was toxic. These are possibilities. Maybe there was nothing overly bad in your relationship, but it just wasn't good. Maybe complacency flooded the relationship, perhaps from both sides, and you became more friends than lovers, and your ex-dumper decided to become your ex-dumper because they wanted something more. And a lot of the time, someone ends a relationship because they are not feeling fulfilled, not due to hate, not due to any passionate reason, but because they're not feeling passion. Now, we must remember that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's actually indifference. So even if you've heard those words, this is what I'm trying to get across, it doesn't necessarily mean what you fear. You can get your ex back if they tell you that they hate you. Some of you will, some of you won't. Every situation is unique. But don't be fearful of those instances. Breakups are emotional. Things are likely going to be said which aren't truly meant, certainly in the long term, and the passage of time might not heal all wounds, but it can certainly bring people back together. It happens time and time again. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube, and if you have the new hype feature, please hype this video as well. If you like my content, subscribe to the channel to keep updated. And point number 2 is what hates you the most. So now we're going to be speaking about what actually hates a dumpee the most, because, as I've just mentioned, it's very unlikely to actually be your ex. And unbelievably, but true, is the fact that what hates you the most, dumpees, is your own mind. It's your own brain. And you would think that this would be working for you. You would think it would be your best friend. You would think that this is something you could rely on. But hear me out, and I will explain to you why your own brain, why your own mind is actually the thing which is showing you the most hate. Now, the reason I say this is because going through a breakup is very, very difficult. You need everybody on side to help you through this difficult time. In particular, your own brain. But it is your own mind that is likely to lead you down paths which is going to make you feel very, very uncomfortable, very, very upset, and unable to move forward. The first example I will give you is the fact that you will be thinking the worst in every possible instance. The relationship ends and you're thinking to yourself, well, my ex-dumper is with someone new. They've left me for someone new. Even though there might not be any evidence of that, even though the likelihood is they are not with anybody else, you are thinking of a worst case scenario. Who is telling you that? It's your own brain, okay? It's your own mind playing tricks on you, showcasing in how I'm describing today that it feels like they hate you. Because if anybody was to actually tell you this type of information, you'd be thinking, please stop telling me these things because you're making me more upset. But this isn't another person, it's your own brain. Every instance you fear is a worst case scenario. You check your dumper's social media and you see them standing in a location where you don't recognise. What do you think? Well, instead of thinking something logical, like there is nothing particularly wrong here, you will start thinking things really, really extreme, such as, well, my dumper must be in a relationship with somebody new, and this location is where that new person lives. That is why they are standing somewhere that I don't recognise, okay? That is the type of thing that your brain will do to you. It will play tricks. You will start to make sense of things where there is no sense. You will start to draw conclusions where there are no conclusions to be drawn. People in the position of a dumpee often start thinking of almost conspiracy theories as for why this happened and why that happened. They will start to see signs where there are no signs. They will start to see clues where there are no clues. And when the most obvious thing is likely to be not as bad as anything else, instead of looking and understanding that most obvious thing, they will instead look for something more outrageous. Again, this is your brain working against you. We would think it would be on our side, but sadly, it's not. But there is even more evidence to be given, and perhaps the best case of evidence is the fact that your brain is suggesting to you to do things which are likely to damage your chances of getting your ex back. If you want to reconnect with your dumper, you should not be chasing your ex. But what is your brain telling you to do? It's telling you to chase your ex. Your mind is suggesting that you should be writing a 10-page letter and sending it through the mail, through the post to your dumper. Why is your brain telling you that? Because the likelihood is it's not going to help. Over the many years I've done this job, writing your ex a letter has not been something that I have seen particular success with. I struggle to think of any instance I've ever heard of where this actually helped two people get back together and stay together forevermore. Sadly, it is not likely to help. But your brain is suggesting it, and your brain suggests many other things as well. It suggests that if you bump into your ex, you should be begging and pleading. You should be over-apologising. You should be doing all of the things which make you look like a low-value relationship option. Why would your brain suggest this? Okay, this is why I'm saying your brain, your mind hates you the most. Now, of course, I'm saying this slightly tongue-in-cheek, okay? Please understand what I'm trying to get across here. Of course, your brain isn't a separate entity to you, but what I'm trying to suggest is that when you fear that your expert-dumper actually hates you, the reality is the thing which has given you the most concern is not your dumper right now, it's your own mindset. You need to get your mindset straight. And as we move through today's podcast, I'm going to be giving you advice on what you can do to try and help yourself remove yourself from these bad thought patterns. Because if you have faulty thinking, you will not get your ex back. If you have faulty thinking, you will not find somebody even better. Because you need to live your life in a way where you are attractive. Not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. And this all stems to mindset. It all stems to how you behave, how you act, and what is in your mind. So we need to get your mind and your brain on side. We can't have them hating us anymore because it's not working as I've shown. So if you think to yourself, well, okay, my brain is telling me this, do I have to do the opposite? Well, of course, you've got to use your common sense. Sometimes there will be instances, especially if you're going through the learning process, of where your brain actually understands what is likely to help you. But if you're going through the grind, you have to recognize you have an unstable mindset. And something which is unstable is likely to give you bad advice. It would be the same and similar instance if you had a friend who you knew was going through a difficult time themselves, you knew they had an unstable mindset, and yet they are giving you advice. Would you listen to that friend? Okay, you wouldn't. You wouldn't listen to the friend of somebody who you know had an unstable mindset. So why are you listening to yourself when you, unfortunately, also have an unstable mindset? Think about that. Would you listen to someone who you know was going through the grind? You probably wouldn't. So why are you listening to yourself? The advice I give is going to increase the chance of your success. Can I guarantee it? No. But what I can say is over the years, I've seen more people find success following my advice than doing the opposite. Every situation is different, and there is no 100% guaranteed way to get an ex back. Nothing works 100% of the time, and nothing fails 100% of the time. But there are definite patterns, definite things to do, definite things to avoid to increase your chance of success. And ultimately, that is all we can do. Ultimately, all we can do is try to live our life where we increase our chance of success. All we can do is try to improve our possibility of achieving our goals. And if our goal is to get our ex back, we must do what we can to help ourselves. And that ultimately means stop listening to bad advice. Stop listening to things that hate you. Stop listening to your own brain. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. Talking about your feelings can also improve your mental health. It helps prevent the buildup of negative emotions, which can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Speak your heart to free your mind. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast. If you feel that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description. And point number 3 is, so what can we do about it? This is the moment of where we need to take those positive steps to try and have the thing that hates us stop giving us the advice, or more importantly, we need to stop listening to it. So what can we do to help ourselves when our mind, our brain, seems to be against us? Well, what I would suggest you do is to focus on you. Occupy yourself. Occupy your mind. If you're sitting at home alone, looking at the time, clock watching, waiting for something to happen, the likelihood is you're going to start assuming things which are wrong. You're likely to have your brain telling you things which are not helpful, showcasing that hate we've been discussing through today's podcast. You'll be worrying what your ex is doing, where they are, what's happening right now. You can't be doing that. You need to occupy yourself, occupy your mind, grow as a person. Give your brain something to think about which isn't your ex. Give your brain something to think about which is improving. Learning a new skill is a really good example of this. If you're learning something new, then your brain can't be thinking about your ex and giving you bad advice. So fill your brain with things which are helpful to prevent your brain from filling you with things which are unhelpful. That is my generalized advice in this instance. Of course, I don't know your specifics, and that is why my audio coaching service could be helpful to you. But in a generalized sense, you need to be making sure that you have very little free time. Now, don't get me wrong, rest is important. Of course it is. I'm not suggesting you don't rest, but what I am suggesting is that you don't procrastinate. What I am suggesting is that you don't say no if a friend asks you to go out and do something. Don't just sit at home feeling sorry for yourself. Make sure you socialize when possible. Make sure you live your life to the full. Make sure you fill your life with new experiences and learning new skills. Become a version 2.0 of yourself. Stop letting your brain have the opportunity to give you bad advice. Because if it's not giving you bad advice, this will allow you time to breathe, grow, and become more attractive. Then if and when your ex-Dumpee misses you, which there's an increased chance they will, if you stop bothering them, and if you stop listening to what your brain is suggesting you do, then if and when your ex contacts you, you will have things to talk about, you will have opportunity to showcase growth, and you can get your ex back. Now, if you live in the USA and want to support my channel, please consider shopping at Calvin Klein using the affiliate link in the description. Calvin Klein is a fantastic brand to help both men and women look great and feel confident. As a Calvin Klein affiliate, I may earn a commission if you make a purchase at no extra cost to you. Thank you for your support.